It feels like there's a never ending stream of disappointment, from poorly balanced patches to randomly not meeting expectations to constant delays. And then they might give us a little bit of a bone here and there, but it leads us to this state of the game where we're all kind of hoping and trying to come back at every new update, and it just doesn't really pull any of us in. And many of you are saying the same thing in my previous comment section. I wanted to look back and figure out what the heck went wrong and kind of why Diablo 4 feels as dead as it is right now. On the other hand, there's a game that's not dead. Today's video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. Be sure to click on the link in the description down below or scan the QR code in order to get access to this amazing game, and you'll be able to follow along with me playing the game on my second channel, which I will also leave in the description down below. I've had a ton of fun jumping into this game and experiencing it with especially all the new characters. This game has over 800 different characters that you could choose from and that you can earn somewhat randomly. That's one of the most exciting things, as you follow along on my channel and play the game through that link in the description down below, you'll be able to see how many different ways there is to go about progressing inside this game. If you click on that link, you will also get access to a bonus starter pack giving you some extra free resources when you start out the game, and you'll be able to check me out inside the game, maybe send an invite and join my clan in the Speak Easy clan here. Be sure to click on that link in the description down below or scan that QR code, and I'll see you in game. Now, for those of you that weren't around, or maybe you were, Diablo 4's launch was actually one of the better launches that I had been a part of. I mean, within the recent time period when Diablo 4 launched, you had games like New World, Lost Ark coming out as big MMO RPG games. Lost Ark, I couldn't even play the first day. I couldn't log in. New World, I mean, we all know how much that kind of fell apart for the first year, to be honest. And Diablo 4's launch really wasn't that bad at all. In fact, I would say it had very minimal problems. And that's honestly some of the most fun I've had in the game, not just because it was new, but because it felt like, despite the game being new, the balance was relatively good. There wasn't too many bugs. There wasn't really a ton of delays going on with the game because there wasn't a ton of expectations associated with that. It's only when we started to get updates and things set forth in our path that it kind of started to really disappoint the community. And you can even see here that people are really on the side of, Rod here, and saying that Diablo 4's launch was one of the smoothest. The only things that you could maybe say about balance is Barbarian was maybe a little bit broken. Rogue was definitely up there as one of the strongest classes. These are all true. And of course, there wasn't like a ton of end game content, which there's still not necessarily. But for the most part, this was one of the better launches with a solid foundation and something that was going to lead into season one very solidly. And season one kind of marked the point in which we wanted to see the quality of life coming in. We wanted to see some changes to some of the balances going on inside the game. They had really drastically cut Barbarian's strength, not only because there was some bugs going on, but because it felt like it was too powerful. So there's some things going on that, started to unravel the community a little bit. And then we find ourselves in season one, the massive patch that set us off, I think, on the course to a shipwreck as of late. The huge season one patch that just kind of really felt that they were making us feel weaker, especially for a lot of different classes. Necromancer was hard targeted. Of course, Barbarian kind of felt just absolutely bashed on every single time there felt like a balance change coming. And overall, we all just kind of felt a little bit weaker. They nerfed the overall game in general, but it doesn't really feel like our builds, or it didn't really feel like our builds were doing what they wanted to be doing compared to the preseason. It felt like it was a nerf, despite the balance comparatively, where the monsters were weaker and we were weaker, being somewhat of a similar level as season 0 or the preseason. Because we were nerfed, we felt it. We knew what our classes were doing before. Despite us kind of killing monsters at the same pace, we knew what our numbers looked like. We knew what it felt like. We knew the cooldowns and all this type of stuff. And it just felt like, it took away a lot of the fun. And this really decimated the future of Diablo 4. Season 1 kind of marked the beginning of the end for a lot of people. And we're kind of in that limbo state where this put us in a position where we're not really expecting anything, but we keep coming back for more. enter into Season of Blood, which honestly was a solid season. There wasn't really too much to complain about. At the same time, there wasn't really much to praise. They started bringing in things and fixing things that honestly should have been done a while ago, and we expected with Season 1. Things like resistances being looked at, things like unique items, things like damage buckets being adjusted, such as crit damage, and fixing some of the numbers that they were a little concerned about, which is why they nerfed every class going into Season 1, because they were concerned about the damage numbers. They also changed some of the classes, and well, they added a little bit of a mechanic, new seasonal mechanic, that wasn't really that impressive because it was very much similar to the Season 1 malignant orbs. So this is something that really kind of was not terrible, but it also reminded us of the game that, well, they're still trying to bring us back. They're still trying to improve to a state where we were okay with and we should have been having in Season 1, or potentially even latter stages of preseason. They did add one of the best parts of this game, which is sort of that boss rotation where you farm specific bosses. But once again, that was sort of a call to the uber uniques and the way to farm those unique items that people were stuck on. And that still kind of missed the point at which everyone is sort of playing the game, or rather, why everyone was playing the game and where they were at. Most people aren't at the point where they could actually benefit from all these new mechanics, and they could actually benefit from all of the different new sort of boss fights or different ways to go about the game, because it was too late in the game for them. This game definitely focused on the more casual side of things when you compare it to other games like Path of Exile or Last Epoch, right? This, because we had all the systems in place for the latter part of the game where you had to invest maybe 50, 60, 70, 80, whatever amount of time. If you were not a min-max, you might even be, way longer. Of course, you can min-max your way to those latter starters like level 70 in a few hours. But unless you were really doing that, instead of just casually playing the game, you weren't able to actually interact with a lot of these systems, which again reinforced this idea that the people who were jumping back into the latter seasons kind of felt like they were in the same place despite wanting to enjoy the game. And here we go into Season 3, and this is the one where it really hit me personally. She really enjoyed Season 2. I enjoyed Season 1, even though I didn't like the balance changes, and Season 0, or the preseason, as well as the time before, was an extremely exciting time. The new seasonal companion, however, for Season 3, as well as delays, balance issues, lack of rewards, and items that we're able to get, as well as a lack of itemization changes, which were asked about for many seasons in a row now, sort of similar to what happened with the damage buckets as well as the resistance changes. It feels like they just take, maybe half a year, 9 months, a year to actually get to some of these changes that we're asking for, and then the game sort of becomes playable, but then something new pops up and, well, we're back in the initial stage. But a lot of people really dislike the seasonal companion. And of course, the new seasonal dungeons were just an absolute nightmare for people. It just delayed them from killing monsters, which is kind of the reason you're playing Diablo in the first place. And this just ended up being a really massive kind of downside to the Season 3. Now, Season of the Construct, not a terrible season. They have made some changes to make it, play better, improve your XP rates, things like that. But for me, I'm just not a big fan of the seasonal companion, so it really hasn't hit me in a place where I actually really enjoy and diving into this season a ton. But then we end up in a situation where, okay, if this is all true and this is what's happening, why do we keep coming back? Why does this keep happening? And why do we get prepared for more disappointment, such as this post from Rod here? Ready for the gauntlets and the leaderboards for Season 3. This was kind of the hallmark for Season 3, the thing that was really exciting that we've been waiting on for a long time for the game to add was the gauntlet, was the leaderboards, was people to compare their builds and things like that. Turns out, not only was it not launched at the beginning of the season and kind of letting people track their races, but they also delayed it even further. And as of now, it's launching on February 13th. Why do we keep coming back? And why do we experience the same sort of disappointment every single time? And I think it ends up being, well, we all want to play the game. And it's really not hard to understand why people get so irritated or why these videos are made when you come from that perspective, which is, we want to enjoy Diablo 4. We want to enjoy Diablo. And for a lot of people, this is like their childhood game. This is their game. This is the game they grew up with. This is the game that they want to continue playing. For me, that's, things like other MMOs, such as like RuneScape, for example. I come back to that game all the time, and just play it, right? Granted, that game, it's kind of the same game that I grew up with in some sense. This Diablo 4 is not really close to what a lot of people grew up with. So that's why that disappointment keeps happening. And you end up with people like this in my comment section where, being done with a season and deciding not to play it because it's dog water, or I tried again today and couldn't do it, so bland and boring, just keep happening. And even people like established community members like Rax, you're starting to see, him try Path of Exile for the first time, Last Epoch for the first time, all these games after Diablo 4 was released. When this guy played Diablo 3 for a decade, this like kind of older, sort of very standard, very base level game with only the small modifications of the new season, this guy was playing every single day, streaming it and diving into Diablo 3. Not to say that he hates Diablo 4 or anything. You can check out his channel. I'm sure all of you know about Rax here, but Diablo 4 is even not keeping those enfranchised players interested, players like Rax here. So we're all kind of in the same point, which is we want to see something from Diablo. We're going to keep coming back to try all the new things. We're going to keep coming back to try all the new patches. But it seems that they just keep disappointing time and time again. And that's why the community feels as it does, which is kind of dead, kind of not excited about every new thing. In fact, I'm not even like excited to see, a new hotfix was released and make a video on it, because I know it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, like another 4% XP boost or whatever it is. There's just got to be something there that really pulls our interest. I know a lot of people talk about endgame and that being something really important for a lot of players, but in the reality of things, endgame players are the very small percentage, maybe a good portion of the outspoken community, but in general, the vast majority of players just kind of want the base level game to be enjoyable and to be fun. And unfortunately, for a lot of people, that's not the case. So let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.